Okay, I need you to listen to this very carefully. Dan sent a voice note.
Sorry, what?
I am completely serious. Dan sent a voice note.
Wait, Dan doesn't send voice notes, like, ever.
I know.
I mean, Dan barely even sends text messages. Trying to get, like, a digital response out of that guy is a masterclass in patience.
It really is.
You ask him a nuanced, multi-part question about dinner plans, and 48 hours later, you get a single thumbs-up emoji. He does not record audio.
I'm well aware. But it gets crazier. Guess how long it was?
I don't know, like 10 seconds, a quick I'm running late or something.
3 minutes long.
3 minutes.
3 minutes of unprompted, uninterrupted audio.
No way.
Yes.
Oh.
So welcome everyone to Just Johnny and Sophie. Today we are bringing you, the listener, straight into the absolute inner circle of our friend group.
It's going to be a wild ride.
We are doing a deep dive into the strange, wonderful, and honestly just mind-boggling timeline of our friends Dan, Marcus, Lily, and Maya. But specifically Dan.
The man of the hour.
Exactly. Our mission today is to explore what happens when the most aggressively predictable person you know has a completely fundamentally unpredictable day.
Yeah, and as we unpack the timeline of what Dan did, we really want you, listening right now, to think about your own daily routines.
Right.
Like, how tight is the script you follow every single day? And what would happen if you just dropped it?
It's such a fascinating premise, right? Because we rely so heavily on our friends and ourselves really acting in predictable ways.
Oh, absolutely. It's how we navigate our social reality without being exhausted all the time.
Yes.
When someone completely abandons their script, it kind of short-circuits everyone around them.
It really does. So let's look at the timeline we pieced together. The inciting incident of this whole saga started with a tiny, seemingly insignificant shift in Dan's morning.
Okay, wait up.
So Dean woke up, and he apparently made a conscious decision to just do something different. Step one, he bypassed his usual coffee spot.
The one he's gone to every day for, what, 4 years?
4 years, yeah. And he went to a brand new, entirely different cafe.
Wow.
Step two, he ordered a drink he had never tried in his life.
Okay, already wild.
Right. And step three, he turned to a stranger standing next to him, completely unprompted, and talked to them for a full 20 minutes.
Which is, you know, to use the perfect psychological phrase here, wildly out of character.
Seriously.
When we say something is out of character, we aren't just saying it's quirky. We're talking about behavior that severely violates the established psychological baseline for a specific person.
Right, the baseline.
Yeah, we all have a baseline. I mean, think about your own morning routine. It is essentially an automated sequence. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you go to the same cafe, you order the exact same drip coffee.
Every single day.
Exactly. You're doing this because your brain is trying to conserve cognitive energy.
It's just easier.
Yeah, the basal ganglia, which is the part of your brain responsible for habit formation, just takes the wheel. So for Dan, who is famously quiet, routine-oriented, and structured, breaking that morning sequence is staggering.
Okay, but I have to push back on the mechanics of this a little bit. Because what you're describing sounds, I don't know, a bit too magical.
Magical? How so?
It's like an NPC, like a non-player character in a video game, who usually just sweeps the same patch of dirt in the village every single day.
Right, right.
And suddenly they drop the broom, break their programming, wander off the map, and strike up a complex philosophical dialogue with a traveler.
I mean, that's kind of what happened.
But why is it that changing one tiny routine like a coffee order suddenly unlocks the permission to talk to a stranger for 20 minutes? You can't tell me a new latte accidentally rewires your entire personality for the day.
Well, no, it doesn't rewire your personality, but it dramatically lowers the cognitive threshold for novelty.
Okay, explain that.
It's a combination of breaking an environmental trigger and something called behavioral momentum.
Behavioral momentum.
Right. Look at the mechanism. Your usual coffee shop is filled with physical cues that tell your brain exactly how to act.
Like the layout and stuff?
Yeah, the lighting, the barista's face, the smell, they all signal your brain to say, okay, activate routine, Dan. Be quiet, get the coffee, look at the phone.
Ah, so by changing the physical environment, he wiped the slate clean.
He completely removed the environmental cues that usually keep him quiet.
So his brain basically had no instructions on how to behave in this new room.
Exactly. He forced his brain to shift out of the default mode network, which is, you know, your autopilot, and forced it to activate the executive functioning center in the prefrontal cortex.
Because he actually had to figure out what to order.
Yes, he had to actively think. And here is where the behavioral momentum kicks in. Processing that novel stimulus, the new cafe, the new drink, floods the brain with a tiny bit of dopamine.
Oh, which makes you more alert.
It heightens alertness and openness, yeah. Once you break the seal on your routine, your brain is already awake to the present moment.
So it's easier to keep doing new things.
Exactly. The friction required to turn and talk to a stranger suddenly drops to almost zero because the script is already thrown out the window. Your brain says, oh, we are actively making choices today. Great, what else can we do?
It's a domino effect. One new coffee bean unlocks a whole new level of engagement with the world.
Precisely.
But the dominoes didn't stop falling there. We move into the afternoon of Dan's day, and this is where the story shifts from just being social to an escalation of, well, doing nothing.
The plot thickens.
It really does. He leaves the coffee shop, he wanders into a bookshop, and he buys 4 books on topics he knows absolutely nothing about.
4 books.
Subjects he has never expressed interest in.
Which, if you think about it, completely flies in the face of how modern adults consume information.
Oh, totally. We're so algorithmic.
Yeah, we are heavily conditioned by algorithmic living. We usually buy books, read articles, or watch videos on things we already agree with or topics we are already invested in.
We just want to be proven right.
We seek confirmation, yeah.
Yeah.
Not pure, unadulterated novelty.
Right. But he is just following pure curiosity. And then, instead of going straight home to read them, he purposefully takes a different, significantly longer route back to his apartment.
The completely inefficient route.
A deliberately inefficient route, which leads to the climax of the afternoon. He finds a park bench, he sits down, and he stays there for exactly 45 minutes, doing absolutely nothing.
Man.
Honestly, nobody saw that coming. Not Marcus, not Lily, not Maya, not me.
None of us.
If you know Dan, the idea of him just sitting on a park bench in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon without a schedule is unfathomable.
Okay, I have to interject here and be completely vulnerable for a second.
Uh-oh.
When we were piecing this timeline together and we got to the park bench part, I realized something deeply uncomfortable about myself.
What's that?
I have never in my entire adult life sat on a park bench for 45 minutes doing nothing.
Wait, really? Never. You've never just sat in a park.
Not doing nothing. And I want you, the person listening right now, to really imagine this.
It's harder than it sounds.
Try to imagine going to a park today, sitting down on a wooden bench, and just staying completely still for almost an hour. No phone in your hand.
No deep dive playing in your headphones.
Exactly. No audio, no book in your lap. You are not waiting for a friend to arrive. You don't have a dog to throw a ball to.
You're just existing.
You are just existing in physical space for 45 minutes?
Yeah.
The modern anxiety of doing nothing is so profound that the mere thought of it makes my skin crawl.
It's an agonizing thought for most people because we use productivity as a defense mechanism.
Exactly. We use productivity, or at least the illusion of it, like scrolling, checking emails, listening to audio, optimizing our time as a shield.
But what are we shielding ourselves from?
From our own thoughts, from the sheer reality of the present moment. We are terrified of understimulation.
We really are.
We've evolved in this hyper-connected society where standing still literally feels like you are falling behind. If you aren't consuming or producing, you feel useless. So for Dan, a guy who usually optimizes his time meticulously, to just sit there, it's practically an act of rebellion. It requires a profound level of psychological safety to just exist without a prop.
It really is an act of rebellion, to just sit and endure the dopamine withdrawal of not checking your screen.
Yeah, that's tough.
And that rebellion completely sets the stage for the absolute masterpiece of this entire saga.
Here we go.
Because after those 45 minutes of silence, Dan pulls out his phone, he opens their group chat, he presses the microphone button, and he records the legendary 3-minute voice note.
The voice note.
Let me tell you, every single person in that group chat listened to it immediately. You do not ignore a 3-minute audio file from a guy who communicates entirely in punctuation marks.
You drop everything. You literally stop what you're doing.
Exactly.
And the content of that audio, it was staggering, to say the least. It was so much more profound than any of us could have anticipated.
I know. Given the length, I think half of us expected an emergency.
Yeah, but he didn't sound manic. He didn't sound lost or in distress. He spoke incredibly calmly and with this intense, hyper-focused detail about his immediate surroundings.
Yes, the hyper-specificity of the details was what gave me goosebumps.
Right. He talked about the specific quality of the afternoon light filtering through the oak trees near the bench.
Just the light.
Yeah. He spent a significant amount of time just describing the behavior of a dog he was watching across the grass.
It was so vivid.
And then he recounted this fragment of a conversation he overheard from two older people walking past. He noted that he didn't fully understand the context of what they were arguing about, but he found the musical cadence of their voices and the mystery of their lives deeply interesting anyway.
It honestly sounded like an indie film director's poetic monologue.
Yeah.
It was so incredibly vivid.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, you know those quiet, atmospheric movies where the camera just lingers on a blade of grass blowing in the wind while the narrator says something quietly devastating about human nature?
Yeah, the really slow, artsy ones.
Exactly. It was exactly that tone, which is the wildest contrast imaginable to his usual ultra-brief, zero-emotion text messages.
Night and day.
And the voice note just ended so simply. 3 minutes of cinematic observation, and he just signs off with a sigh and says, "It was a good day."
Man, to understand what is happening to Dan in that moment, we have to look at the mechanics of attention.
Okay, let's hear it.
There is a great metaphor for this, the spotlight versus the lantern. Usually, when you're strictly on a routine, your brain is like a spotlight. It is narrow, intense, and focused only on the next immediate task.
Like getting to work or buying groceries.
Right, or answering an email. The spotlight ignores the shadows, but by dropping his routine entirely, Dan switched his brain from a spotlight to a lantern.
Oh, I like that.
Suddenly, his attention was radiating outward in all directions simultaneously. He's illuminating everything around him.
So he turned off his brain's filtering system.
Precisely. It's a shift from active, goal-oriented processing to passive, receptive processing. Our brains are incredibly efficient filtering machines.
They have to be.
Yeah, the specific angle of the afternoon light, the behavior of a random dog, the musicality of a stranger's conversation. Those inputs are always there. They are happening around all of us, constantly, every single day.
We just block them out.
Exactly. Our sensory gates are usually closed to them because we are focused on survival or productivity or our screens. We literally do not consciously register them.
But Dan opened the gates.
Dan opened the sensory gates, and ending it with, "It was a good day," is the ultimate summary of someone who has actually truly experienced the present moment.
Which brings us to the absolute chaos of the group chat fallout.
Oh boy.
Because while Dan was sitting on a bench experiencing Zen enlightenment, the rest of us were collectively losing our minds.
Panicking.
The reactions to the voice note were instantaneous. Marcus, true to form, replied with exactly 7 emojis. Just a wall of wide eyes, exploding heads, and question marks.
Which is the modern digital equivalent of being struck completely speechless.
Totally. And Lily was so sweet about it. She wrote, "This is so unlike you in the best way possible."
That's classic Lily.
And Maya actually cried. She left her own voice note a few minutes later, her voice shaking a bit, saying it was the most beautiful thing she had heard in months.
And your reaction?
Oh, I went into sheer panic.
Naturally.
Because the contrast was so jarring. Dan is having this moment of profound, quiet observation, and meanwhile, my phone is vibrating off the table with anxiety from the group.
Everyone was freaking out.
I completely bypassed the group chat, went straight to Dan's private messages, and texted, "Dan, are you okay? Do you need me to come get you?"
And his response?
A simple lowercase yes.
Yes.
Just, "Yes, I am okay."
It's fascinating, isn't it? The aftermath of this whole event is incredibly revealing, not about Dan, but about our own social conditioning.
How so?
Because by the very next day, Dan was completely normal again. He was back to his usual self.
He really was.
Back to the short, punchy texts. Back to his regular, predictable coffee shop. The spell had lifted, the lantern was put away, and the spotlight was back on.
Back to the baseline.
Yeah. But when the group finally cornered him over the weekend and asked him the ultimate question, why? Why did you do all of this? Why the new cafe, the books, the park bench, the voice note?
We needed answers.
Right, and his complete explanation was just 4 words. I felt like it.
I felt like it. I mean, we really have to point out the massive irony of our reaction here.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
Why is it that we immediately assume our friends are having a severe mental health crisis when they suddenly act peacefully present and mindful?
It's so true.
I literally thought he was having a psychological breakdown because he noticed the light on a dog. That says way more about my own warped baseline than it does about Dan's mental state.
We're all just stressed out.
Society has trained us to view extreme stress, constant busyness, and endless rushing as normal. So when someone unplugs from that matrix and acts with utter peace, we sound the alarm bells.
You are so right. It is the complete normalization of the rat race. Think of it like a treadmill. If someone is running on the treadmill right next to you at the gym, matching your frantic, exhausting pace, you assume they're totally fine, even if they're miserable and sweating through their shirt.
Because they're doing what you're doing.
Right. But the moment they calmly step off the treadmill to just stand there and breathe, you ask if they need a medic.
Wow. Yes.
Dan stepping off the treadmill looked like an emergency simply because stillness is so rare. And his explanation, I felt like it, is absolutely brilliant because it flat out refuses to engage with the modern demand for a hyper-rationalized life.
Yes. We constantly feel this immense pressure to justify everything we do with some sort of metric or goal.
Always.
Like, I went to the new coffee shop to optimize my commute time, or I bought these 4 books to upskill for my career pivot.
Or I sat on the bench for 45 minutes to practice mindfulness and lower my cortisol levels by 12% so I can sleep better.
Exactly. Everything has to have a return on investment. But Dan didn't give us a TED Talk on his motives. He didn't claim he was doing a dopamine detox. He just felt like
He
it.
just did it.
Yeah. I honestly argue that I felt like it is the most perfect, quintessential Dan explanation possible. It's unvarnished, it's brutally honest, and it requires zero validation from anyone else.
It is a display of true autonomy. It's the sudden realization that you don't actually need a grand, overarching, productive reason to change your day.
You really don't.
You possess the agency right now to just take a left instead of a right. We build these invisible prisons of routine around ourselves to feel safe, and we completely forget that the door isn't locked.
We are holding the key.
We are. Dan just casually